Welcome back to another DPS analytic video. This is going to be week 3 for Molten Core. We're going to look at the nerfs to the Hunter class this week, and then next week we can look at the Boomkin buffs. Hopefully this brings them closer to the median DPS. The biggest change we need to look at first is the damage to adds will no longer count for a majority of these encounters. Warcraft Logs has done a recrawl and removed any log with unnecessary add damage. So going forward, we're going to look at this the same way that I was explaining before, is we're no longer going to look at just damage to bosses, since a majority of these fights are only going to be counting the damage to the boss, and then the only fights where the add damage will still be relevant is going to be Sulfuron and Major Domo. Of course, now Major Domo is no longer going to count toward the boss damage because they are unkillable. The damage has been removed from them as well. Keep this in mind as we look through the logs, that it's going to really favor a lot of your single target specs, and even though we've seen a nerf to the Hunter class, I think that the way that logs are being looked at now is going to really affect them more than the nerf itself. So if we look through these logs, you can see that the Feral Druid is on top. Like I was saying, the more favored single target specs are going to start to rise up even more now because of the way that the logs are being looked at. And then, right, like I was saying, week 1, if you look at the max percentile, you had an Ellie Shaman super far up there because they were able to cleave off the adds just the entire time, and they weren't really hitting the boss. So the changes to this seem very necessary because you were just going to get some very degenerate gameplay of people just stacking the adds and cleaving it as much as possible, and anyone else who was trying to compete for logs just would never be able to do that unless they implemented the same strategies. So this kind of evens the playing field by a big majority. The downside to this is your classes like your Ellie Shaman now have to rely primarily on that single target rotation, and it's going to be very hard for them to compete unless they get some kind of buff or something to help them out with their single target damage. Sulfuron, however, you will still see the mages, warlocks, hunters, and feral druids doing very well, as well as your shadow priests, since they do very well on 5+ target encounters. And same thing for Major Domo. It's going to look very similar as well for that fight. And then of course, same thing as before, your warrior is very underrepresented on these two fights since they cannot continuously hit all of the adds like all of the classes above from Shadow Priest onward. We can briefly look at just the rank 1s. It's going to be primarily just your single target classes, your mage, your feral druid, your warrior, and your assassination rogue. These classes will continue to scale unless logs get changed or these classes get some kind of nerf or some kind of buff. I'm surprised to see your survival hunters still so incredibly high up here, even with the way that the logs are now being changed. But then again, your warriors this far up here, and they're very underrepresented on this fight as well as this fight. So that's 2 fights where they have a heavy disadvantage and they're still second on an overall. That's pretty insane. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to talk about. We could briefly talk about the healers and wrap this video up. Since your Holy Pally is going to get a nerf to Divine Light, it's going to be an 8-second cooldown now, so hopefully that evens the playing field a bit, because at the moment, Holy Pally is just by far the best healer, the highest amount of HPS. Let's look at that real quick. For healing, it's just nothing but Holy Pallies. Disc Priest, I think that's actually Holy. That Disc is the shield, yeah. Resto Druid here and there, your occasional Mage healer, 1 Resto Sham. But yeah, it's just nothing but paladins at the top of the iceberg. So hopefully they balance this somewhat to where it's not just Holy Pallies all over the raids, and you sprinkle in whatever utility you need from the other specs. That's about it for this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll be coming out with a new DPS analytic video every week for Season of Discovery. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and concerns are, and maybe what I can look at in the weeks to come. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.